Welcome to Enlightened YouTube channel, your go-to source for fascinating stories from history, fully powered by artificial intelligence. In this series, we'll delve into the life of one of history's greatest military leaders, Napoleon Bonaparte. From his humble beginnings to his rise as Emperor of France, join us as we explore the triumphs and trials of this iconic figure. Subscribe now, and let's journey through history together. Chapter 1. The Early Life of Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon Bonaparte was born in Ajaccio, Corsica, on August 15, 1769. His family originally came from Italy and moved to Corsica during the turbulent times of the Guelphs and Ghibellines in the Middle Ages. They were regarded as part of the local nobility on the island. Napoleon's father, Charles, was a well-known lawyer who married Letizia Ramolini, a woman known for her beauty and strong character. During a civil war in Corsica, when the islanders fought against French rule under their leader Paoli, Charles supported the cause for independence. Letizia often accompanied him during his campaigns in the mountains. When the war ended, Charles considered leaving Corsica with Paoli, but his family convinced him to stay. He eventually reconciled with the French rulers and was protected by the French governor of Corsica, Count de Marbeuf. It is said that on the morning of August 15th, Letizia attended Mass. When she returned home, she went into labor and gave birth to Napoleon on a simple bed covered with a tapestry depicting the heroes of the Iliad. Napoleon was her second child. His older brother, Joseph, later became King of Spain. He also had three younger brothers, Lucien, Louis, and Jerome, and three sisters, Eliza, Caroline, and Pauline. All of these children survived to adulthood. Letizia had a total of 13 children, but 5 died as infants. She became a widow at the age of 30. In later years, when Napoleon rose to power, many people tried to give him a grand ancestry. When the Emperor of Austria attempted to link Napoleon to some minor princes from Treviso, Napoleon responded, "I am the founder of my own lineage." On another occasion, when a genealogist tried to trace his family tree, Napoleon dismissed him by saying, "My history begins at Montagnat." Charles Bonaparte, thanks to the French governor's favor, was appointed as Procureur du Roi in Corsica, a role similar to that of an attorney general. There were rumors that the governor, Marbeuf, was romantically involved with Charles's wife, but these rumors were not believed in Ajaccio. Little is known about Napoleon's early childhood except that he always expressed deep gratitude for the guidance and wisdom of his mother, Letizia. He believed that his rise to power was largely due to her early teachings and maintained that a child's future behavior depends entirely on their mother. Few stories from his early years in Corsica have survived. It is said that his favorite toy was a small brass cannon, and during school vacations he would retreat to a summer house by the sea, about a mile from Ajaccio, where his uncle, later Cardinal Fesch, had a villa. This spot, now in ruins and overgrown, is known as Napoleon's Grotto. Napoleon described himself as being notably stubborn and curious. Others mentioned that he was also high-spirited, quarrelsome, and liked being alone. He was not particular about his appearance. Once, after being caught stealing figs from an orchard, he convinced the owner to let him go with his persuasive words. His disheveled clothing and affection for a local girl were made fun of in a song his friend sang to him in a yacht show. Napoleon in half a sock loves Giacominetta. Napoleon's strong character was noticeable from an early age. When an elderly relative, Lucien Bonaparte, Archdeacon of Ajaccio, was on his deathbed, he called the young members of the family to say goodbye and give his blessings. He told Joseph, the eldest, that while he was the oldest, Napoleon was the leader of the family, and they advised him to remember this. Napoleon made sure his words were not forgotten by asserting his authority, even starting by dominating his older brother. From a young age, Napoleon wanted to pursue a military career. When he was about 7 years old in 1776, his father was sent to France as part of a delegation from Corsican nobles to meet King Louis XVI. Napoleon went with him, thanks to the help of Count Marbeuf, who also got Napoleon admitted to the military school at Brienne. They traveled through Italy and France before reaching Paris. Although Napoleon initially enjoyed school, he later recalled the painful farewell with his mother. When he arrived at Brienne, he only spoke Italian but quickly learned French. While he didn't excel in Latin and general literature, he stood out in subjects useful for a future soldier, particularly mathematics, where he was favored by his teachers. Once, after being punished for a dress code violation, Napoleon's pride led to a violent reaction, and he had a fit of hysteria. The math teacher, recognizing the boy's potential, intervened to release him from the punishment. Napoleon didn't care much for typical pastimes, but was passionate about activities that simulated warfare. His talent for building and defending fortifications, whether made of turf or snow, impressed many. As a poor and almost foreign student among French peers, Napoleon faced many hardships. He was reserved and proud, had few friends, and preferred solitude with his books and maps. M. Bourrienne, a friend from this period, noted Napoleon's distinct Italian look, sharp gaze, and often bitter tone. He observed that Napoleon's aloofness might have stemmed from his family's misfortunes and the impact of Corsica's conquest on his early years. One day, during dinner, when the principal spoke dismissively about Paoli, Napoleon angrily defended him, saying he was a great man who loved his country. I will never forgive my father, who was Paoli's adjutant, for agreeing to Corsica's union with France. He should have stayed with Paoli. The way some French students at the school treated Napoleon, with their jokes and arrogance towards him as a foreigner, likely influenced his early political feelings. He was particularly annoyed by their mocking of his name, Napoleon. He once told his friend Bourrienne, "In the future, I will do as much harm as I can to the French. As for you, I know you respect me." From the start of the French Revolution, Napoleon aligned himself with those who wanted a complete change in government. Interestingly, Pichegru, who later became a notable but eventually unlucky figure, was Napoleon's tutor at Brienne for a time. Years later, when asked about the possibility of persuading Napoleon to support the exiled Bourbons, Pichegru replied, "It's a waste of time. I knew him as a young man. He's chosen his side and won't change it." In 1783, Napoleon was sent from Brienne to the Royal Military School in Paris, thanks to the recommendation of his teachers. This was a significant honor for a 15-year-old boy, recognizing his talent and hard work. At the Paris school, he dedicated nearly 2 years to his studies. Given his later busy life, most of the knowledge he relied on was likely gained during this period. He became an excellent mathematician and was deeply interested in history, especially the works of Plutarch and Tacitus. Plutarch's simple portrayal of heroic figures and Tacitus's deep political insights were particularly influential for him. During this time, Napoleon also read the poems of Ossian, which were new to Europe and seen as ancient heroic tales. The dark and dramatic style of Ossian's poetry captured Napoleon's imagination, and he continued to appreciate it throughout his life. At the Paris school, Napoleon stood out and was noticed by those who compared him to other students. His achievements even brought him into contact with the famous Abbé Raynal. Soon after starting at the school, Napoleon wrote a proposal suggesting that the school's expensive and refined lifestyle was not suitable for future soldiers. He recommended replacing the regular meals with simple soldiers' rations and having students take care of their own clothing. However, this proposal did not improve his standing at the military school. At the age of 16, in August 1785, Napoleon was examined by the renowned mathematician Laplace and received his first military commission as a second lieutenant in the La Fère artillery regiment. He joined his unit in Valence and, despite his previous reserved nature, became involved in the local society. He had notable physical features, a classically beautiful face, strikingly bright eyes, and a short but fit and active body. While he never mastered courtly manners, he was skilled at making himself likable when it suited him. On February 27th of the same year, Napoleon's father died from stomach cancer at the age of 45, the same illness that would later claim Napoleon's life. While in Valence, Napoleon competed anonymously for a prize offered by the Academy of Lyons. The competition was to answer the question, "What principles and institutions can bring the greatest happiness to mankind?" Napoleon won the prize, but the content of his essay is unknown. Later, Talleyrand found the manuscript and showed it to the emperor. The emperor glanced at a few pages and then threw it into the fire, possibly because the essay contained views that were inconvenient for him to remember. Even at Brienne, Napoleon's political views were already set. When he arrived in Valence, he found that the officers in his regiment were divided between supporters of the French monarchy and those who wanted to overthrow it. Napoleon openly sided with the latter. He later reflected, "If I had been a general, I might have supported the king. But as a junior officer, I joined the patriots." In early 1792, Napoleon became a captain of artillery and was in Paris during the dramatic events of June 20th, when a revolutionary mob attacked the Tuileries Palace. He saw the king and his family endure severe insults and struggle to stay safe. Napoleon, seeing the king appear on the balcony wearing a red cap, couldn't hide his scorn. He loudly criticized the king's weakness, saying that if he had used cannons to drive the mob away, they would have fled. Napoleon also witnessed the even more brutal events of August 10th, when the palace was attacked again. The National Guard, who were supposed to protect it, sided with the attackers. The royal family had to seek refuge in the National Assembly and the Swiss guards were almost entirely slaughtered. Though Napoleon supported the National Assembly, he was appalled by the violence. He described the scene of chaos, screams, and bloody pikes as hideous and revolting. During this time, Napoleon was unemployed and poor. He spent time idly wandering Paris and was mainly supported by his friend M. de Bourrienne. He even considered renting houses and subletting them to make some money. This was the state of Napoleon's life as the national crisis was worsening. Though he was still just a spectator of the revolution, it wasn't long before he would be thrust into a more active role. General Paoli, who had been living in England since the end of the Civil War in which Charles Bonaparte fought under him, hoped that the French Revolution would bring freedom back to Corsica. When the revolution began, he was welcomed in Paris as a friend of freedom and was made governor of Corsica, where he ruled well for a time. However, as the revolution progressed, Paoli, like many others, saw that the leaders were more interested in chaos than in creating real liberty. He became opposed to the radical Jacobin ideas and the resulting violence. As a result, he was declared an enemy of France by the National Assembly. An expedition was sent to remove him from power, led by Lacombe Michel and Salicetti, a Corsican deputy. Paoli then called on his fellow Corsicans to defend themselves and him against this attack. In 1793, Napoleon Bonaparte was on leave from his regiment and visiting his mother in Corsica. He had set up a small reading room at the top of the house for quiet study and spent his days with family and old friends. When the conflict began with the arrival of the French expedition, Corsica was thrown into turmoil. Paoli, who knew Napoleon well, tried to persuade him to join his cause by flattering him and calling him one of Plutarch's men. However, Napoleon believed that Corsica was too small to remain independent and that it would be better to align with France rather than England. He declined Paoli's offers and joined Salicetti's side. Napoleon was temporarily given command of a battalion of National Guards. His first task was to capture a small fortress called Tor di Capitello near Ajaccio. Although he took the fortress, he and his troops were soon besieged. After a brave defense and surviving on horse meat, they had to evacuate and escape by sea. As the English began to support Paoli, the situation for the French party became dire. The Bonaparte family was expelled from Corsica, and his mother and sisters fled to Nice and then to Marseilles, where they faced hardship and poverty. Napoleon returned to his regiment, having chosen France as his country and showing little affection for Corsica. After he rose to power, he gave a small fountain to Ajaccio and inherited a small olive garden near the town. Corsica rarely appeared in his later life. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the life of Napoleon Bonaparte. We hope you enjoyed learning about his early years and the events that shaped his path to greatness. Be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss episode 2, where we'll dive deeper into his rise to power. Until then, keep exploring the wonders of history with us.